Hello, John Talley here with Partzilla.com, and welcome back to our series on our 2019 Can-Am Outlander 1000R. Now today we're going to be focused in on working on the clutch system because, as you know, if you've been following along, we're more or less converting this one over to where it can deal with the deep water and the mud that, well, a lot of people like to play in. So today we're going to focus in on replacing the springs and the weights on the clutching system inside the housing. And we're also going to put on a matched belt so it can deal with all the stresses. So if you're ready, let me go open up my toolbox and we'll dive into this project. All right, kids, we're about to dive into this, and it's always a little unnerving when I look up and I see that it's missing a couple of bolts. That's either somebody's really sloppy or potentially we've got strip threads on the other side. Let's hope that they just happen to misplace those couple of bolts. Well, let's go ahead and get it pulled and see what we find. Also, resist the temptation to use an impact wrench. I do know that these are just brass threads back there, and you don't want to impact those. So I know it'll take longer, but use your ratchet to do this. All right, there we go. Let's see what we have in here. All right, come on. Well, a little bit rusty, and can't imagine why. Oh boy, I'm sure everything's still good in there, but you don't put that back on by accident. I mean, come on, that's just being a little bit lazy, guys. So yeah, I'll be heading to my desk to think maybe order a new seal. It could be warranted in this case. All right, guys, I'm not using just a tap or a die set. I'm using a thread restore kit. And the difference is, a tap, that's actually creating or cutting new threads. And it can get this done to an extent, but it will actually do more damage to the threads versus this. And what this is going to do is go in and clean out the threads and then just reshape them a little bit if needed. And it is less intrusive, if you will, on the threads themselves. So if you don't own one of these, you may want to go ahead and invest in it. Now, I'm pretty sure I did a video about that, so if you want to go check out the difference in between taps and dies and rethreading, go take a peek. Oh yeah, that's not bad. All right, any other surprises in there? Now let's take a look. There are a couple. Now we can deal with this later, but I want to see now what I'm up against to see if I have to replace that rear cover or not. It'd be pointless to go and do all the work we're going to do and then not be able to get all the bolts back in. So let's go ahead and look at each one of the threads and make sure we're okay. Well, we know we're good through there. That one, I think, was left out. So far, so good. And then it binds up. Okay. But the good part is, I think we can clear that up. Now, let me go grab my thread restore kit, and let's see if it can straighten that up. That's what we want, all the way down, all the way back. So I'm thinking, just to be sure, let's go and go all the way around, clean them out. That way we know it's going to go back together when we finish up and get that cover on. A little bit of work now will save us a lot of pain later. Most of these I won't even need the ratchet on. Oh, see, that one's a little bit catchy. All right, let's open up our driven sheave and get that belt off. All right, well, that ain't feeling real special there, guys. Tell you what, I'm gonna clean up that thread as well. Shouldn't be that tough to get in there. Now see, I told you you'd use this tool more than once. Now let's see what we've got. Still not great. Let me add one more thing to the equation. A little bit of lubrication. It looks like somebody just replaced this belt. That's pretty slack. You've got a brand new belt and you put that old seal on? Come on. Y'all starting to see why I don't trust much on this machine just yet? There we go. I doubt that had more than 50 miles on it. Hopefully they don't have any other surprises on the inside of that. But hey, whatever they are, we're gonna fix it. There's no working around this without the right tools. There's no workarounds I can think of. I mean, this is very specific stuff. Could you just thread a regular long threaded bolt in there and do it? Probably. I wouldn't chance it. Go ahead and order the real deal. So that's a pretty good amount to get it pushed in, or spread apart rather. All right, before you go any further, let's go ahead and mark our drive pulley so we can get it back in the same position. Doesn't matter which one, just pick one and go. Now, next special tool. There we go. Now, could you grab a hold of this with some type of band holder? Probably, but this one's not gonna miss. All right, guys, taking a look at this, I don't see a single socket mark on this, so I'm betting it has not been pulled apart. And I know that Can-Am uses red Loctite on this particular nut, and we need to heat it up. So I'll make it easier to pull apart. Now, I can get a huge breaker bar and probably break it loose, but why stress the shaft that much? Let's just go ahead and heat it up. Not cherry red, but hot enough to just melt the whatever Permatex or Loctite that they put in there, and then we'll be able to break it loose. And do make sure you have no open fuel anywhere around here. All right. Now let's get in there, break that bolt loose. All right, do not take this all the way off because we need to release the tool and then keep pressure on that spring. Otherwise, she'll want to jump out onto the floor. Now, mine's not stuck, but if yours were, you probably need to pop that real quick to get it to release. But let's go in. All right. A little warm, but we withstood it. There we go. All right, guys, this is a little bit late in the game, and I probably should have done this in the beginning, but we need to bring cylinder number 2 around a top dead center and install this locking bolt, if you will, but it's a special tool that's designed to go in and hold the crankshaft still when we go to remove the stud. More importantly, when we go to reinstall the new one, that has a very specific torque, and this would be really nearly impossible to hold. You know, it's just impossible to hold. So let me bring it around to TDC. Well, number 2, definitely take out your spark plugs first, then we'll get this tool installed and then get that stud pulled. All right guys, this is a 10mm headed bolt. I know it's going to be tough to see, but it's in a cavity right under what looks like an oil cooler. So that's where we're headed. All right, next, let's remove this little inspection hold where we can get a wrench in there or a socket to rotate our crankshaft. And what we have to do here is pull this crankshaft position sensor so we can see what position it's in. And we're going to bring it around to top dead center for number 2. Just remember that, because that's the only place that we've got that locking tool will go into position. That should be it. See if I can feel the top of the piston. Should be right there. There it goes down a little bit. And then top. All right. That should be it. Let's see if we can get our locking tool to engage that gap. All right, that's bottomed out. Now let's see if it actually is in the right position. She's got her. All right, let's go. And I'm just using a pretty standard stud extractor. There we go. Yeah, that sound you heard was just that Allen falling off. So nothing broke, we're good. All right guys, this is the part that we're most concerned with. Of course, we're replacing the springs, then we're going to be pulling this apart to replace the weights on the inside. But the other thing I want to take into consideration is how much wear that we have on the sheave surface itself. This looks to be fairly substantial, but I want to look at another unit so I can get an idea of the profile and make sure this isn't beyond a usable state. So give me a couple of minutes to research that, and then we'll make a judgment call as to what we need to replace or not. Now let's go ahead and break the other one loose, but don't take it all the way out. Because you're going to have the spring to deal with, you need to keep a little bit of back pressure on it. Keep some pressure on it, and let's go. There we go. Well, all right guys, here's everything that we've pulled so far, and I've split it apart and done a really close inspection on it now. And I can tell you, at some point in time, a very traumatic event occurred under that cover. Every one of these pieces has some type of physical damage and abnormal wear. I mean, especially on that outer drive sheave. It looks like this if you're looking straight up the edge. And I know there's supposed to be a bit of a curvature to it, but it is completely distorted. So my theory at this point, because when we pulled this apart, I left that inner part of the drive sheave still on the machine because it looked okay. And I think the reason for that is that I think the original one probably exploded for reasons unknown to us, and then shrapnel went everywhere through this system and just wreaking havoc. I mean, no matter where you look, something's got a gouge or a cut or a divot in it. So I can't really in good conscience reuse any of this. Could I take it apart and then clean it up and then get it back together and it work? Probably okay for a while, but I think that's what somebody was trying to do before. The one thing I did notice almost immediately is they had put on a new belt, and I think that was masking the fact that the secondary sheave was almost seized up completely, and it took a lot to get this pried apart. So I'm not going to let a previous problem follow this machine around for the rest of its life. So we're just going to clean the slate and start over again. As painful as that's going to be, I think that's the best course of action. So let's get that inner sheave pulled off, push all this to the side, go order a whole bunch more parts, and then we can get this thing put back together the way it should be. All right, guys, we're getting ready to pull the inner forward sheave. Let's go ahead and get our tool in there and get it removed. All right, let's put a little muscle on this to see what happens. Let's see if we can shock it off now. There we go. Well, honestly, guys, I'm a little bit relieved that I don't see any damage to our crankshaft, because I was getting the feeling when the old one flew apart that it may have scarred this up, but I think it's okay. I don't know what happened in here, but it wasn't pretty. So let me head to my office, order a bunch of parts, then we'll lay them out on the table and then get to it. Well, all right, guys, this is everything. And I know this is a lot, and it is probably 5 times further than I was planning on going. But if it has to be done right, and I can't in good conscience use this old, beat up, worn out system, especially on this machine. So out with the old, in with the new. So let me clear all of this carnage out of the way, and we'll start putting this together. So let's go. All right, now that we've got all that nastiness out of the way, let's start building up our one-way clutch, a few other pieces. I think we're going to go ahead and put on the weights on our primary sheave, and then we can get it put back together finally. All right, the real trick here, guys, is make sure you're completely level when you start this. This bearing is so thin-walled, if it goes in cockeyed, you're going to have to order another one. And that's what we don't want to have happen. All right, on the back side, which is what we just did, there is a retaining ring. Don't forget that part if you're having to build one up from scratch, which hopefully you're not having to go through all this. The real trick here is to make sure that it seats into that groove all the way around, because this is a low tension ring. So you may have to guide it in just to make sure it's all the way in that groove. That should be it. Now let's get that other side of the bearing. And I didn't mention it, but of course you need to make sure that the open sided for the ball bearings is facing in. You want the seal to be facing out. Oh shoot, didn't even need the driver for that. Just pop straight in and we're good to go. Right here is where you need to break out that ISOFlex grease. Very specific. Make sure you're using this type. Just a regular old grease is not going to do what's necessary inside of here. What we're going to do is get it in the channels of the one-way clutch. You don't have to put a lot. We just want to lightly get it lubricated so those pins can slide through the grooves easily. Now here's where it gets a little bit tricky. We need to get some more grease on the springs and our spring sleeves, get them held into place as we bring the one-way clutch in. Once again, doesn't need to be a lot, just a light coating. Here comes the fun part. There we go. Definitely wipe off any excess after it's seated down. All right, one more time with the grease. And this is going to be for our friction sleeve. And the trick is with this one, you want that collar to be facing in. This is basically your flat side out. There we go. All right, guys, this is pretty much ready to go. I do want to go ahead and clean up that surface with some contact brake cleaner. It's important for the surface to be clean, because when it grabs a hold of that belt for the first time, we really want it to have something to latch on to. And grease or dirt is not going to let that happen. Now, if you're reusing yours and not starting with new, I have used just a light Scotch Guard pad just to knock the glaze off of this, because you do want it not rough, but a clean, smooth, even surface that doesn't have any other contaminants on it when you're trying to grab hold of a brand new belt. But in our case, all we need to do is make sure it's clean. Okay, and we'll go back and do this for each one of the other pieces right before it gets put on. Now the next piece we actually need to bring back up is this one, because we need to pull not so much the weights because we're replacing those, but we need these pivot pins to go into our new piece. All right, let's start pulling some of our pivot nuts and bolts out of this. Not a lot of room to work with, but you've got a 8mm bolt and then a T20 Torx. The good part is not a lot of torque involved here. And as you can imagine, there will be Loctite involved when we go to reinstall it. Break that loose. There we go. Let's see if we can guide it out of there. One down, 5 to go. All right, so that's everybody out. Now, give me a couple of minutes, head over to the wire brush, get that cleaned up, and then we can start putting her back together. Now all this is supposed to be put together dry. The way I keep these little washers in place is just to get the smallest dab of grease. And I'm talking about a very small amount. Just enough to stick this thing in place long enough to get it over there, like that. All right, there is no torque spec on this that I'm aware of, so we're just going to bottom it out lightly, and then we're going to put just a little dab of Loctite right on the end. I know that's a locking nut, but I just want to be very sure that it doesn't back off. 1 down, 5 to go. All right, halfway there. 3 down, 3 to go. There you go. Well, all right, guys. All we need to do now is get this cleaned up, start getting it bolted to the machine. So let's do that. All right, get our cam in place. Our new Dynojet spring, we're gonna ride right in there. All right, guys, with this spring, you'll notice it does not have any tanges on it, so there's no need to do any type of spring preload. So we've got our spring in place. We've got our sheaves put together. Now keep in mind, you do have to replace your washers, the main nut, and then the lock nut, because they do not want you to reuse that. There we go. This is when you better have eaten your Wheaties. You just need a couple of turns and we'll be okay. All right, at this point, we're just gonna get that to bottom out because we can't hold it still just yet, because we will need that holder to be in place when that happens. And for that, we need the drive clutch to be installed. All right, first, let's get our stud reinstalled. Now we're going to take this to 37 foot-pounds. Now I'm using a stud extractor / installer tool. You could just take 2 nuts, lock them together, and accomplish the same thing. Bring in our inner sheave. Got our new spring, got our outer sheave. Our weights have been installed. That was a lot of fun. And then we've got our governor. And since this is a new inner or outer sheave, there's nothing to line up with. So when I took off the old one, thought I was going to reuse it. That didn't happen. So we're just starting from square one with this. Now, fun part again. Remember, you've got not 1 but 2 washers, and then this guy. So let's get them all ready to go. There we go. Starting to hurt. And we're on. Now let's get in our locking tool. Yeah, the cam wasn't engaged, but it is now. All right. Whew. All right, this is a 2-step here, so we're going to take it to 15 foot-pounds and then 180 degrees. 15 coming up. Cool thing about this torque wrench, you can actually do 180 degrees and multiple turns. It keeps up with it. Great for close quarter stuff. There we go. 26 foot-pounds. Coming up. This one's gonna have some torque on it, kids. We take it to 60 foot-pounds and then 90 degrees. So hopefully she can handle that. I know it can do the 60 foot-pounds, but the 90 degrees, you may have a hard time with that. All right. Okay, let's see if she's got 90 degrees in her. Hey, got it, just barely, because that it reads 92 degrees, and that is 101 foot-pounds. I'm pretty sure this is only supposed to go to 100. So right at this one's limit. Now for our set screw, we want to use a little bit of red Loctite. Then we're going to take it to 48 foot-pounds. All right, this game's almost over, kids. All right, guys. Not that this has ever happened before, but let's go ahead and remove that locking tool and get that plug reinstalled. All right. So let's get our belt back on. There she goes. That should do it. We've got our new belt from Dynojet. Not that the other one was in bad shape, but this is not the way we want to go. Okay. Here we go. The last part of that thread doesn't like to go through there smooth. All right, last but not least, just need to get the cover back on. Do remember to put your access point on the other side for the crankshaft, as well as the crankshaft position sensor. Get those reinstalled, and then we can call this project done. All right, we've got our cover, and I do want to clean this up a little bit since it has so much mud in it. So give me a second to do that. Then we'll get our new seal in place, maybe add a little RTV down in this channel just to make sure it's going to seal up. Now this is not required. This is just a personal preference. We're going to put a thin bead of RTV all the way around on that channel. It does two things. It's going to make sure that it seals up on this side, and it'll actually hold it in place when and if you have to pull this cover off. That's looking pretty good. Now this surface should not have a problem sealing back up. Before we set her up there, remember it was missing that section, so there's a lot of dirt and mud. Let's get that wiped off to where it has a smooth surface to go back against. All right, guys, I am going to add a little RTV to the other side of this gasket. Reason being, this machine's going to see a lot of water duty, so I want to make sure that none intrude into this area. So give me a second, get a bead laid around, then we'll get it mounted up, and we can call this project finished. That should do it. All right, well, let's get her back up there. Let's get the rest in. But don't tighten them down just yet until they all get in there. Then we'll seat them. And there actually is a torque pattern, but they basically just want you to go back and forth all the way around, and I believe it's 6 or 7 foot-pounds is all that's required to hold these in place. Cleaning out the threads made all the difference. Everybody's going in smooth. Be careful on those bottom ones because it is a little bit at an angle. See, I've got a bit of a swivel on the end of my extension. Now we're just going to lightly seat these, going all the way around. Then we're going to put that torque on them. The reason it's important to torque these, or just be really careful, is that's just brass that we're screwing into, and it's so easy to strip it out. If you go back to the beginning of this video, I actually had to clean all these out with a rethread or a thread saver. Actually, these are only 5 foot-pounds, so even more the reason to be careful with them. See, I told you, it doesn't take much on these. And I know they say to do it in a crisscross pattern, but let's be realistic here. Just going around is going to be fine. All right. Well, all right, guys. That's going to wrap up this little project, but as you can see, I still have a lot left to do. Well, listen, if you need any parts for your machine, why don't you come see us at Partzilla.com and we can get you taken care of. Hey, if you like what you see and you want to see me continue on this one, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button along with that notification bell. That way you'll be notified when we drop the next video. We just want to say thank you for shopping here with us at Partzilla, and we will see you in the next video. Y'all have a great day.